July, but I don't know. Could it be? No, it's the 2nd of July. It's actually the day that the Constitution was ratified. Not this Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I want to have it stand up. I'm trying to keep it. I don't really like the angles that my phone has. I'll follow. Okay. So, to be honest with you, I just feel like there's a lot of topics that people talk about generally that are just really always like buzz topics. Like, what's buzzing? Like, okay, so political stuff, I'm just not as interested in it anymore. Like, I do think it's important to vote. I kind of have been looking at certain presidential candidates, and I would say Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would be good, but I just don't exactly agree with him and his hot takes on vaccines. I'm sorry. I think, yeah, it should be a choice, but I just don't really agree with him completely 100% on that either. And all the people vibing for Trump, I'm like, you guys, you need to stop. Like, it's pathetic. So I try to like figure out why people like love Trump or they love Biden, and I honestly think you have the right to love whoever you want, but there isn't like a presidential candidate that just really is knocking my socks off right now. I saw something that the Libertarian one posted, and I wasn't super keen on that either. So like, who looks kind of good? I guess right now, maybe Robert Kennedy Jr. is a little bit better than Biden. I don't know. He does seem better than Biden. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Biden, but overall, I just think, yeah, American politics really, people should keep more of it on the down low and maybe not put it on blast as much. That's kind of another thing I've come to this conclusion. I'm just so tired of how politically charged everything is, and it doesn't matter like whose political philosophy it is. I've just come to the conclusion that that's not what life's about. That's not what morals are about. That's not what we live for. I believe we live for a higher power, not for politics, but that's just my take on it. You know, free will, I advocate for people making their own decisions, but at the end of the day, I'm just not really keen on any political philosophy. I feel like there's something bigger and more to the world than political philosophy. It's good to know about what's going on in the world, but the people who act like, oh, this one's better, that one's better, I don't know, it changes per circumstance. Like, some people loved Trump 5 years ago and now they hate him. Some people like him now and they didn't like him then. I just don't ever think he was a good candidate, period, and I'm not going to pander to the people who thought that. It's just not my vibe, you know? But I don't think Biden's much better. But all these people who fight, they go up, they go back to bad about it. I just am like, really? None of them are like super, super good. I think Robert F. Kennedy's Jr. is a little bit better than Biden, just from everything I've been listening to him say, but he doesn't really wow me either. Like, there's nobody that's like, whoa, I'm so captivated by this one. I haven't been sold on any of them yet. That's my take on the whole politics thing, that people are just, they're fighting to the bits about it. But I would say Donald Trump is over. I'm just like, well, so should Joe Biden be. I don't think he should be running again either. I don't think Trump should be running again. Let him. I think Biden should be like, you know what? As we've seen, he's just not really, he's too old to be president. I think, and not maybe some people wouldn't have those issues, but he just doesn't. I always thought of him as like the hot dog VP, okay? Because he always just seemed kind of silly, and I never like I liked Obama, okay? He was articulate, and there was just something about him, like when he spoke, like he resonated with you. And I know a lot of people have like a hatred for Obama, but he was a very articulate person, and I respected him in a lot of ways. But I just don't feel that way about Joe Biden. So all these people like fighting over politics. I guess Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a little bit better, but nobody's great. So where does that leave us? I wasn't impressed. At first I was kind of curious about the Libertarian candidate, but I didn't really like exactly what he had to say either. And yeah, I don't know. I've just come to the conclusion that God is more important than politics, okay? That's just my take on it. God outranks politics for me, but you do you. I don't know. I can't tell people. I would rather find serenity and happiness in life, appreciate the beauty of nature, appreciate the purpose of life, than bicker with other people over whose political philosophy that's ever changing is the most important. I know some people may be very consistent in their political philosophy, but in the political realm, I just think, why? Why do you need to make it known? Make everything known, fight with each other about it. So those are just my thoughts on that, and yeah, I don't feel like any of them are super good. If right now we had to have an election, I guess I would vote for Rob, and he was, we could pick. I like that Robert Kennedy Jr. is an environmental lawyer. I like that he's intelligent. I don't really agree with him on vaccines, although where I do agree with him is I do think it should be a choice. Whether, I know some people that's controversial, but I think it should be a choice whether you get a vaccine or not. I just don't agree with his very stringent take. Yeah, I'm gonna say some of the vaccine stuff might have been pushed a little too fast, but on the same token, we have brought down the COVID numbers, so maybe there was something to it. Maybe it did help a little. I personally am not going to get more boosters myself. I don't think it should be mandatory, but if somebody wants to get the vaccine and it makes them feel better about being in society, I think that they should be able to do that. I don't think all vaccines are bad. And there is one thing that Robert Kennedy Jr. said that kind of was bad science. He's still touting that autism link with vaccines. That's been debunked. I'm oh my gosh. For an intelligent person, his stance on vaccines does bother me, okay? I'm not pro, you need to get all these vaccines. I think it should be a personal choice, but I don't like junk science either. So there just isn't a lot of balance on anything. And I think he's a better candidate than Biden, but I don't know. So that's my take. Everybody's so hot and heavy into the politics. They're all really opinionated on the politic thing and taking this opinion and that opinion. And I'm chill down a bit. I think God's more important than political views. I'm at that part of my life where I think we've seen many leaders come and go. They're a flash in the pan. I don't want to be a flash in your pan, okay? That's just my take on it. I mean, some people, I just believe in a higher purpose in life beyond political ideology. That's my opinion right now on these things. I don't know. And not in a organized religion kind of way, just in I believe that, I don't tell people what to believe, because people should believe whatever they want. But I just believe God has a higher purpose for us than bickering over politics, and yeah, that's just my take on it. But I know that's not a popular take, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if you don't really believe in a higher power, why are you making Donald Trump or Joe Biden or I don't know, Prince Harry or Prince Charles, who's now King Charles III, your God? Stop making humans your gods. They might be the elite, but they're not your gods, okay? There's nobody on this earth that's ever walked this earth that should be your God, in my opinion. Well, I know some are going to be like, but what about Jesus? I don't know, because I believe he's the Son of God. So you're not going to like my answer. I have a very interesting process towards everything that I believe and think, and I don't join groups of people to find the sense of the world. I find solidarity with kindred spirits. I enjoy interacting with people, but I think some people just need that. They need to belong to a political party or a religion or a cause or an activist thing, and I just don't feel like you need to belong to those things to find purpose and meaning in life. But what I do like about Robert Kennedy is I think he's the most pro-freedom with the most solid platform. So out of all the candidates right now, he's looking good. He's looking better than Biden and Trump. And I don't know, the Libertarian one, I wanted to be impressed by him at first, but honestly, Libertarians start losing me when I start realizing that they're a little too conservative, because then I don't believe that they're pro-liberty, okay? That's where they kind of lose me. So I need someone, even though I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is maybe he's what you would call a more conservative Democrat, I just think you need somebody who's not completely pandering to the conservative take on things. Because if you're really a libertarian, why are you going up to bat for conservatism? That's one reason I never wanted to go to Libertarian National Convention or any. I was just it's a little there's a little bit too much of a conservative bent, and I'm not saying I exactly align myself with liberals, but that whole no, because they're going up to bat with each other. It's just too much. It's just too much. Did you know American politics is kind of toxic in a way? It just isn't healthy for you. It really isn't. That's why I believe in finding higher purpose and higher power in God, not in American politics. But I was just kind of thinking about different candidates we have right now. Who knows who we're going to end up with. But if you guys want to fight with each other about who you think is better, maybe none of them are that great. Maybe God's better than all of them, my opinion, okay? And I'm not talking about this from a specific interpretation. Maybe it's a slightly Judeo-Christian with homages to Islam interpretation, but not organized. I don't know. I believe in a higher power. I don't want to give all of my life to political parties, to activism, or to people who act like gods on earth. Okay? That's my take on it. People act too confident. These politicians, none of them are that great. Some are better than others, but they all have flaws. Robert F. Kennedy's hot take on vaccines and autism. That's embarrassing. That is super embarrassing for him. I do think people should have the free will not to. I don't think it should be. Yeah, so I don't know. Those are just my takes on all that political stuff. He is better, though, than I would say Trump. Why is anybody voting for Trump in 2023? That's embarrassing. He is a corporate whore for Giuliani. Stop embarrassing yourself with him. He's not your friend. I don't think he's a good guy, and I'm not saying that Biden's a good guy, but if we had to rank them, he's at the very bottom of the barrel, okay? That's my take on it, okay? That's just my take on it. I don't think he should have ever been president, but I thought that in 2016. I did vote for Gary Johnson, who I actually liked. But I don't know, we weren't ever going to have a president like that, so. That's probably when the libertarians had the best, I think, ability to maybe get liberals on their side, because as much as Gary Johnson might have been kind of silly, he had been what you would call like an old school Republican that wasn't super conservative, that was more free market economy, and he wasn't against like certain civil liberties, that even though libertarians and conservatives say that they're for civil liberties, they want to pass laws against certain things that don't align with their values. And yeah, I just can't get on board with that. So, because why don't you just keep your values to your flippy, floppy self and stop trying to make them legislation for everybody? And that goes for liberals too. That goes for conservatives. I think they all need to knock it off a bunch. But you know, everybody wants to fight. Everybody wants to fight in this big fight, and you know, I'm just so over it. Like I said, I don't think any of it makes life better. I kind of want to. I've been learning some words of Turkish in my free time. I want to draw and paint. That's more interesting to me than any of the presidential candidates. I don't think any of them are gods. I think all of them are super flawed. I think Donald Trump is the worst. I think, yeah, what is he thinking? He should take himself out of the presidential race, and so should Joe Biden. They have no self-awareness, either of them. Okay, so I guess the other day, I mean, I don't really follow Mia Khalifa, but she wore this shirt called Insecure Men for some sort of photo shoot. And a lot of her fans got really, like, offended by it. But I was thinking, actually, Joe Biden and Donald Trump are kind of insecure men. Like, they're these older men that have these illusions of grandeur, both think that they're qualified to be president of the United States, or somebody put this mind and this vision in their head, and neither really are. Obama was presidential. Joe Biden's not, and Donald Trump's not. And I don't even think Obama's a god. It just has to do with articulation and how you can kind of get along with other people. And even though people love to diss Obama, he actually was very conciliatory towards other people, more than anybody ever had to be, really. I know a lot of his detractors never saw that, but if you actually just stood still for a minute and listened to him, he was a very articulate speaker. Do you know who swayed the 2008 election? For him was Ted Kennedy. It was another Kennedy. I think maybe out of everybody, Robert Kennedy Jr. is better, but none of them are like, wow, super great. Does that make any sense? I don't know. I'm just looking for good and great and better, but it seems like everybody wants to fight over mediocre populists who have illusions of grandeur and who fit into that shirt that Mia Khalifa wore that said Insecure Men. And I don't even follow her, but when I heard that people were upset about that, I can't help but think, is it men like Donald Trump and Joe Biden who have these illusions of grandeur, who think they should be president of the United States? And I think about these things. So anybody who fights over who should be president of the United States and says, oh my God, Donald Trump is great, or I see you caravanning up and down the street with him, wasting your gasoline money on a man who doesn't give a fig about you. Get over it. He doesn't like you. He's not your friend. Why are you doing his bidding? I mean, I never saw anybody do that for Reagan. What is going on with you? People finally stopped doing that. It was kind of embarrassing. You're going to waste your gasoline. I mean, the man is a megalomaniac, apparently, and he is an insecure man. I would kind of say the same thing about Joe Biden. I mean, I don't know what made him think he should have ran for president or why that was a good idea either. Those are my thoughts. Robert F. Kennedy is Jr., even though I don't agree with him on the vaccine thing, is better. But nobody's amazing. Okay, so that's my take on the politic thing. Other stuff, I don't know. There's all these different current event things that pop up when you log into Bing. So I guess like it's kind of the same idea. I guess it has to do with Prince Harry. A lot of people really hate him for some reason. I don't hate him, by the way. I listened to his book. I think he's misunderstood. He's not some intellectual, and he even says so in his book. I mean, it was ghostwritten with somebody else. He's not an intellectual heavyweight, okay? He's not somebody who's sitting in his room and writing poetry. That's not him. I mean, he was kind of like a jokester. That's who he was all his life. So anyway, I feel like people are just so shocked that he left the royal family, and they say that it was Meghan who made him do that. And, you know, I do question, like, some of the, like, things that they're doing, like why they were doing so many Netflix shows. I could understand him wanting to write a book, but maybe they were doing too many programs, and yeah, it's not surprising that people weren't that excited about it. And honestly, I think it's fine if he wanted to leave the royal family, but maybe he needs to amend his expectations a little. Like, I know people really want to hate on him. I just think he needs to realize if you're not going to be a member of the royal family, maybe you need to start looking for a job. I don't know. That's just my thought. Because I thought he was a very good narrator, and I said, why? And I kind of thought, why doesn't he do voice work or something like that? I think they need to amend their expectations, but I know people really want to hate on them, but I don't think that they did anything different than like Prince Charles did in his heyday with Camilla, who, oh my gosh, like, the whole thing is not a really pretty picture. You know, I mean, I wouldn't be fanboying over anybody in the royal family. I do feel a little, I mean, sorry for Harry because of what he went through with his mother dying very young, and I think it kind of probably changed the way he looks at the world. I think it just comes to this point, though, like, people need to stop speculating about his marriage, like, is he getting divorced, and blah, 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 blah. Does it matter? Doesn't matter if he gets divorced. And then people need to stop, like, maybe putting Charles up on this pedestal and acting like he's like this amazing king, because he was kind of a playboy. He really did Diana dirty, okay? And then people are like, but she did the same thing. Probably not. He was with Camilla the whole time. And I think what it was is he wanted to be with Camilla, but his mom, the queen, wouldn't let him be with Camilla. And that's what happened with that. And it was just weird. But, yeah, people did Diana dirty. And I think it did affect Harry. And I know a lot of people really hate him. But I don't know. I just think it's kind of gross that Camilla also has people in the press, like, kind of cheering her on, too. And there's so many articles about them all the time. And why? What is the point of this? But I think it's fine if Harry wants to leave the royal family. I just think at this point it's time to amend, like, their expectations and be like, you know what? If you're going to leave, you're going to just have to live a little bit more of a normal life and maybe get a job. I mean, one thing I thought was cute was he said, oh, I didn't even know what it was like to get a package from Amazon until a few years ago. So, and he's flown on commercial airlines, and yes, he has a lot more money than most people, but I just think if you're not going to be in the royal family, you do need to amend your expectations a little. I don't think you can expect to live like the lifestyle that you lived when you were in the royal family, okay? Or to think like just because you're famous that you're going to have that. And I think that's what's going on with them right now, is maybe they were just wanting too high of a lifestyle, and I think they should have moderated their expectations a little. I just think maybe like they need to live in a smaller house. Maybe they need to have like less of a luxurious lifestyle. That's just kind of my take, because if you're, not that I'm saying I even agree. That's the funny thing though, because like, what is the royal family at this point? A lot of people in the UK don't want it. Not everybody loves the royal family, by the way. A lot of people are like, it's kind of antiquated. And this discussion's come up many times in history. And I don't understand why people are so willing for Charles and Camilla, and I know they're going to say, well, William and Kate, because they all played by the rules, and Harry didn't play by the rules, but look, he was told he didn't have to because he was the spare. And I'm not excusing anything that he did, but I don't think he's any worse than they are. I think people fanboy elites too much, and I think deep down, like, they all will make amends one day, maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that book was just too much for them. But maybe at the end of the day, you shouldn't expect that if you leave like a certain establishment that you're going to have the same standard of living. I mean, even if you're a famous person, I think sometimes you need to amend your expectations a little bit. And that probably goes for Megan too. I think maybe she thought that they were going to be really famous and that they were going to have X amount of dollars. And I think that's why she's kind of rebranding herself right now, because she's realizing, oh, that didn't really pan out. Now with Harry, I don't know what's going on with him, but I do think they're just going to have to live a simpler lifestyle maybe. I mean, that's just reality, because not everybody's going to be rich and famous, you know, if they strike out on their own. This is happening even with like musical acts, where somebody's like, I'm going to leave this band and I'm going to have my solo career and it's going to be amazing and I'm going to be bigger than the original band I was with. And then because of who they are, like, they get this deal, okay? Similar to like what Harry and Meghan got. So I know people really want to hate on them too, like saying, oh, they're mediocre and they're grifters. I don't think they're necessarily grifters. I think this is what it is. Like, they're accustomed to a certain lifestyle. But when you leave, like, a certain, like, if you don't want to be part of a certain institution anymore, then you have to amend your expectations and to think like, oh, and I also just got this interpretation just from kind of reading or listening to his audiobook that he thought he needed this and this amount of security. And I get it, you're a famous person, you probably do need some security, but maybe you need more like modest expectation. Maybe it can't be like overconsumption. I think they were just grabbing for too much. I think that was the problem. They're kind of like the musicians that struck out on their own because of notoriety, and somebody's like, oh, I'm going to give you this music deal, and then it turns out like the solo music act just like kind of like, well, Harry's book, it's sold, but I wouldn't say it's the best book I've ever read. I enjoy his voice and I enjoy his perspective, and I think everybody is entitled to have their perspective. And I know a lot of people want to hate on him because he has a slightly different take, and they want to hate on Meghan, but he wanted to be with her. That's the thing I don't get. That's another thing that's just kind of toxic about this, and nobody wants to admit, is like, why are they hating on him for being with her? It's gross. Like, that's really gross. Like, are you guys jealous? Like, is Piers Morgan jealous of him? Like, that's kind of what it feels like. Like, are you jealous that he liked her or something? Or that some people like that? I mean, it might just be jealousy. That's kind of what it feels like a little bit. And I'm just trying to share my take on all this, because everybody's always talking about all the current event issues, and I'm not super up to date on current events because I've been doing double time runaround, like, so I don't have time to like read every news article on the planet. But just when I do read some, or I do listen to a book or read a book, these are my interpretations of these things. And I would say with a braid, you have a little bit of shrinkage. See the length difference? So, I don't know. These are just my takes on these things. I think it was fine for them to leave the royal family. I don't think Harry wants to be in the royal family. I think he does want to strike out on his own. I do think, though, they're going to have to amend their expectations. And this has happened with other famous people. They realize, oh, like, I might have been a flash in the pan when it came to this one musical act, but then if I go off and do my own solo thing, it's not going to be as big. Like, look, I love Paul McCartney, right? He's amazing. And I think Wings was a great band. But let's be honest, was Wings as ever big as the Beatles? I mean, maybe in Paul McCartney's mind, Wings was as big as the Beatles, but, and like diehard Paul McCartney fans, but I would say outside of their diehard fan base, Wings was never as big as the Beatles. Like, the Beatles were bigger because a lot of times the first thing that really resonates with people is always going to be the biggest thing, and you can do offshoots, you can do sequels, same thing with books, movies, all sorts of things. And that's kind of how I interpret Harry and Meghan. I know a lot of people want to hate on them, but maybe the allure was people thought Harry was so cute and spunky when he was young, and he's always been irreverent. I don't think he's ever changed. Like, people keep saying he's changed and he's different. I don't think he changed. In fact, in a lot of ways, I think he remained the same, and that was the problem between William and Harry, is that he always was kind of tongue-in-cheek, irreverent. Do you remember that little nudie picture he was in? Like, here in the U.S., in Las Vegas, he was almost 30 years old, man. And William was married by that age, okay? He wasn't settling down at the same age William was. He was out partying, being kind of silly. That's just who Harry is. Like, I think people act like he changed so much. I think he's just always been that way, okay? And people are given more grace to be that way when they're younger. But I think when they get older and they still are kind of that way, it makes people mad because they feel like, in some ways, like, Harry doesn't seem as super mature as, like, William. That's true, because William is very steadfast. He's very in control of his emotions. And Harry seems more impetuous, and maybe he doesn't really think things through. Like, were there some parts of that book that were kind of uncomfortable to listen to? Yeah. Some things I'm like, Harry, why did you put that in there? I don't know. I was beginning to think it was like a tell-all about everything. I was like, I don't know. Like, some things. But I think he's pretty much always been that way. He just probably doesn't listen to advice enough. But I think going forward, maybe I seem like I'm talking about this too much. I think going forward for them, I mean, first off, people need to stop speculating if they're getting divorced or what. I don't think they're getting divorced. I think they're very happily married. I think people look for any reason because they just really hate Meghan so much. I don't know why. Like, Harry wasn't going to marry you, okay? All these people that hate him. He was never going to marry you or the girl down the street or the old lady down. No. He loved Meghan. He wanted to be with her. So a lot of this, like, anger towards him, I think, and Meghan, comes from a place of jealousy. I don't know. People didn't have those feelings towards Harry, towards William. I feel like maybe, why is it that they're this way towards Harry? Because he's a little bit of a bad boy, right? And it's like, it's this kind of trope that a lot of people want the bad boy. And there's something about him, and when the bad boy settles down, they kind of want to hate the woman that he's going to be with, you know? It's the same with John Lennon. People still hate Yoko Ono to this day. Like, they still blame her for the downfall of the Beatles. But at the end of the day, I just think if you're going to leave an institution or a group or something, you have to modify your expectations. So I think, yeah, Harry probably needs to slow down, and he probably needs to kind of put his expectations in check. I don't think he's going to be living the lavish lifestyle. I mean, he is a well-known name. He'll probably always have money. But I think maybe his expectations are a little too high. Like, well, he doesn't shop at Trader Joe's, okay? He doesn't clean his own bathroom, like, so he's not exactly going to be like us, but I don't really want him to be either. I don't really care. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to worry about it too much, but I guess that's just my take on all these current events. Since Bing keeps telling me that I want to know everything about the royal family every time I log into my computer. I'm like, it's interesting. We listen to one thing and you follow something and then every day that's all you see. You purposely, intentionally have to look for other news stories. You can't just, you do, like you have to find more information out there sometimes. Alrighty, put this one back in the braid. And these are my braids redone. And that was my little story time thing about current events and my take on all of them. And you can have whatever take you want, but let's stop treating politicians and royalty like gods. Maybe. Just a thought. Okay? Stop caravanning for Trump. Stop worrying about who Harry's married to. Your life will be better for it. I'm just saying. Thanks for watching.